Okay, so recently, yourselves, Axians and Nokia have announced you're accelerating your long-standing partnership. I guess it'd be good to understand, was there anything in particular that sort of prompted the renewed momentum? And if so, why is now the right time to scale up the collaboration, if you like?
I think there's a number of reasons that have contributed towards it. I mean, first of all, so Axians is in 38 countries, and we've been working with Nokia directly in a number of those locations. And then I think it was sort of the, the the momentum that they were getting in the industry was meaning that more of the individual countries who weren't engaged were beginning to become interested. And also at the same time, Nokia have been pivoting to quite heavily towards a channel model. So they're more focused now on trying to drive business through their partner community rather than direct, which is where the historical sort of business has been. So really, they've been looking for partners that can help them to address a number of markets and to bring skills and expertise to the customers. Looking for large scale partnerships where technology vendors who have relevance in the market were coming to kind of the fore, and I think the two met. And like I said, we were already working in a number of locations, and it just sort of worked that we're primarily a European business. They're a European owned business. So there's a lot of synergies across the way that they're going to work, and we're in most of the locations that they are. So there's a really nice overlay.
Okay, and in terms of how the partnership aligns with, I guess, the sort of broader industry trends shaping communications infrastructure and digital transformation across EMEA, any thoughts as to what the partnership brings to the landscape there?
Well, I think Axians bring a lot of expertise in a lot of different verticals from the various countries that we're located in. And that is appealing for a large vendor because it gives them a depth of sort of skills and competencies and customer base that they can immediately start to address. And from our side, it's been really helpful in terms of a lot of the kind of current trends around quantum computing, for example, and quantum encryption at a kind of an optical layer and at a kind of some of the higher level layer 3 sort of levels. It's something that Nokia have been very, very at the forefront of, and that means that we're bringing sort of more of the kind of cutting edge technologies to bear, where we've got the customers asking for it, they've got the technology, and it's sort of mapped together. Obviously, there's AI. You have to have an AI statement in every kind of interview, but AI fundamentally is going to drive fairly significant increases in demand on networks, network security, and also just the way that the data flows across kind of infrastructures. And I think we're both well placed to tap into that market.
Okay, yeah. In terms of sort of connectivity and I guess next gen connectivity in particular, I think it's areas like private 5G, optical transport, data center networks, which I guess is not unrelated to the AI you mentioned there, and IP routing. So those are sort of some of the key focus areas. Are there any of those in particular you see as biggest sort of game changers for enterprises, or is it a case of sort of all of the above? Just your thoughts.
I think one of the symptoms of the fact that AI has becoming so kind of prevalent as a technology that people are investigating or looking at is up until the last sort of 5 to 10 years, we saw quite a large trend in a lot of enterprises going, do you know what, my main business is not having a data center, so I'll take all my services as SaaS. And so there's a large move to the cloud, there's a large move to shut down their own data centers and basically just consume services. We've seen a bit of a reverse of that in some areas, especially the kind of heavily compliant and regulated environments where they now realize that they have to have that AI cluster that they can then manage themselves for their own use rather than taking a SaaS variant or a shared variant. And so we're seeing of a turn back towards data center. The data center fabric technology that we've got with Nokia, I think, is going to be really quite important going forwards. Again, the quantum, looking at past when quantum compute enables you to basically render RSA pretty much null and void. that whole sort of regulated again and compliant industries are having to look immediately at how they can strengthen that and remediate those scenarios. So data center interconnect, large scale optical infrastructure. But yeah, you mentioned private 5G. We see that as a massive enabler. We see that as something that's driving the next generation of connectivity in industrial environments, and especially in things like utilities or construction or even large scale sort of enterprises with like warehousing and scale campuses. Because I think that fundamentally on that particular area, the fact that you've got low latency, high speed, quite high levels of subscription level in terms of concurrent sessions and the security that's innate in 5G can really be an enabler from a kind of smart city perspective of how you do all the sensors and all the kind of smart buildings that are then feeding into that AI kind of agent management of a number of things that you have in your environment. So I think private 5G will become almost a kind of the high speed, ubiquitous connectivity in a campus environment that drives things like AI connectivity rather than Wi-Fi. I think Wi-Fi will always have a solution there, and it will always have a place to play. I think there'll be a combination of the two, in all honesty. But I do think private 5G is going to have a big place to play.
Okay, and I think you along the way there potentially answered some, or at least my next question, but I'll ask it anyway. So if you've answered it, that's fine. But in terms of the sort of types of organizations or industries, which I say you've obviously referred to a few there, that are going to benefit from this partnership, and I guess the tangible improvements they might see in operations, or I guess connectivity in particular, anything to add to that, I suppose.
Well, like I said, very regulated or compliancy driven organizations. We're seeing a lot of interest in critical national infrastructure style organizations. Now, that term has been broadened quite considerably in the last 12 months to incorporate a number of areas that weren't historically. So our data center is considered CNI. Any major transport hubs that were always CNI are now, it's even more kind of critical to that, and additional levels of compliance are being pushed down onto those organizations. So those sort of environments where the ability to commit long term to strategic engagements is a big thing. You know, they want to invest and put stuff in the ground and leave it for a long time. So the ability to have those long term relationships is really key. I think a European vendor that, I mean, in terms of local economics, that can commit to a 3-year price book. A lot of American vendors struggle to commit to anything past 6 months because there could be tariff changes, there may be additional barriers or kind of costs that have to go into their models. So the ability to kind of forecast out and say, I've got a large project, what's my 3-year price look like? There's an ability to commit to that from a European vendor. It's more challenging for a US vendor to do that. Outside of that, I think manufacturing and utilities, I think the industry 4.0 coming through, OT environments are becoming a lot more complex because they're being driven that way by the organizations that are in there. It's about securing those as well. So the ability to do both the full OT environments and also the IT environments and also the kind of the interface between the two lends them very well for many manufacturing environments where you can look at single vendor solutions for the entire infrastructure rather than having a lot of disparate pieces that you have to play with. So I think anywhere where there's a lot of compliance and regulation, as I said before, anywhere where there's the large scale use of sort of sensors and technologies to try and drive, in effect, robotic production line, those sort of things. The ability to do that at scale is definitely a plus point for the Nokia platforms.
Okay, and you referenced security there, but the announcement, I think you emphasise end-to-end secure and reliable networks. be good to understand how you're addressing clearly there's increasing complexity and security demands for the enterprise infrastructure, almost it kind of ramps up on a daily basis. But so yeah, what's your sort of approach to that?
I think the approach we take is ironically to simplify. The requirements being pushed onto the infrastructure are becoming more complex. But what we're trying to do is simplify the underlying design and infrastructure and build almost kind of modular templates to add additional functionality in there, rather than complexity innately in the design. I think that's the only way you can do things now, is to try and take as many different ways of doing things as possible and condense that down to as few as possible, so that your design principles are repeatable. Your operations don't have to look at bespoke things every time they turn around a corner. And then from an ongoing cost modeling perspective, it's more predictable as well. So we would always try and simplify the design as much as possible. Everything is secure by design now. So you're looking at how you harden all the kind of equipment. You're looking at things like within the modules you're building, how you've secured the individual sort of functions and features. Again, quantum becomes quite a big play, where you can say, not only are we hardening the individual sort of services, but we're actually encrypting those with quantum technologies. That gives an extra layer of comfort. And then you've got all the usual joys, like things like TSA compliance and NIST and DORA and GDPR. So all of those frameworks fall onto the solution. And again, without simplifying what you're trying to do from an overall perspective, trying to be compelling and to be kind of compliant to all of those frameworks is a massive battle. So yeah, I think if anything, it'd be simplification is the irony for the increasing complexity of the world.
Yeah. No problem at all. And obviously, you mentioned earlier on about private 5G being an important area for you, and the fact that you think it's potentially going to sort of take over some of Wi-Fi's sort of role. But I guess if you want to say more about 5G opportunity, fine. But also the joint approach you've got with Nokia, how does that particularly stand out in the market? What makes it different?
I think that this is an area where the partnership can add a huge amount. So we're not just taking Nokia technology and deploying it and then saying, here's an Axian solution. We've actually developed our own tower technology. So to adjustable masts, temporary masts that we can deploy in literally hours rather than days, and they're movable. We're also building software around specific corner cases like safe worker. So working in construction or heavily regulated environments, how we can use sensors on the individual workers to work out where they are, where they shouldn't be, what kind of certification they've got to allow them to be in certain locations, whether they're safe or not, working out where the kind of site foreman is, the first aiders, all of those sort of pieces, but be able to map that into a single pane of glass. So we're adding and layering up, and then so we're creating a solution that the Nokia is a part of, but is not the be all and end all. It's the enabler, and then the solution is around the Axians. We're also bringing in industry credibility in utilities and in manufacturing. So we've got a route to market that allows Nokia to get quite a good step up in that space. So there's a lot of excitement on both sides on the private 5G and how that can join up, because it's very, very much a partnership. And they're looking at us as much of a delivery and providing a partnership as they are. So that's something we're really excited about and looking forward to seeing where the future goes with that.
Okay, yeah, maybe just sort of slightly following up on that, we've got yourselves that are bringing deep sort of integration and services expertise, and then Nokia obviously have an extensive technology portfolio. In terms of the sort of the way these strengths complement each other when it comes to actually deploying sort of real world customer examples, just your thoughts as to how well matched, if you like, you are in this partnership.
Yes, it's a great question. I mean, it's one of the things that I think Nokia saw in us when they were looking at partners to invest in across Europe and wider. Axians is a business that's been around for a long time. We have quite a good footprint in a lot of verticals and a lot of industries. So we have that domain and customer knowledge of what people are actually after and the kind of the requirements and the challenges and the outcomes that are needed by those sorts of customers. Nokia are technology specialists. You know, they have the expertise around providing, in effect, solutions for challenges that they're aware of. Part of the kind of partnership is we can feed back to them where we're seeing additional challenges. So we can help to evolve their roadmap by, in effect, feeding back direct customer engagement sort of feedback to them as to where they see the kind of requirements. But yeah, I mean, very much, I think it's the kind of the combined is more than the individual parts. And I think it's the bringing together of two sets of expertise that allow us to get quite dangerous in the market now. So it's a really exciting time.
Yeah, and maybe just in finishing, sort of a little look ahead, whether it's you can see the partnership further developing, or also just your thoughts as to how enterprise connectivity. I mean, you've mentioned a couple of things, I guess, how you see that evolving. I mean, you've obviously got wireless, you've got wired, and you've got speeds and feeds, etc. Just there's a lot going on. So what do you see as the main things for folks to be focusing on, I suppose?
I think from the partnership perspective, I think we will be and we are already developing joint solutions across both entities to take to the market, take to our customers. So it's very much that joint branded sort of solution rather than it being Axians reselling Nokia or Nokia having a channel who can fulfill. It's very much a partnership in terms of how we're delivering those sort of services and platforms and solutions to our customer base. I think, like I said, we're giving feedback directly into, I talk at C-level to a number of our major customers. Part of what I do is sense check where they see the world moving to. I get direct feedback from them that I can then in effect feedback into Nokia, and then they're in effect getting a kind of almost a straight from the end user's mouth C-level brain dump of here's where I think the world needs to move to, or here's the challenges I'm starting to see. So we're very much bringing value back to Nokia in terms of giving them more of a sight into an insight into the end users sort of thinking and problems. We're getting closer involved with them in terms of their roadmaps and the ability to see where they're kind of evolving their services to. And like I said, it's joint solutions. It's working out how to build certain solutions that we will build jointly, not only a case of we've got something and they've got something, but actually between us create integrated solutions that we can both take out to market. So I think, we've worked really close with them so far. I can only see that increasing, that they're really nice to work with because they've got almost a European mentality in terms of there seem to be slightly more on the same wavelength to us as many American organizations, because their native market is their biggest and therefore their entire roadmap tends to be tuned that way. We've got the reverse, and we've got someone who's actually looking at the European market as their domestic market, and that means that they're slightly more in tune with the way that we're thinking as a European business. So yeah, I think it's going well. We see some really good opportunity to develop both the kind of organizations and working together to create some really interesting and kind of collaborative solutions.
Okay, and maybe just a final question. Obviously, as we referenced a couple of times, AI is everyone's sort of current obsession, focus, whatever you want to call it. But you've referenced quantum a couple of times, and I'm intrigued as to, understandably people are looking at AI right now, but do you think they need to get ready for quantum as well, because it's potentially not that far away and the impact could be quite huge if you're not ready? Just your thoughts, I suppose, as to how much people should be focusing on AI and how much they should be keeping an eye on this quantum computing that's on the horizon.
As a techie, I actually get more excited by quantum than AI. AI is an intelligence and a way of helping you to work in a slightly different way, or to help to move your organization forward by leveraging, in effect, massive brain power to crunch information and deliver it in a different way. Quantum is a total step change in how you look at any type of compute and any type of process. And I think when you get quantum computing and AI hooked in together, it's just going to absolutely rocket. Just that pure piece. But one of the big things that quantum will give you is the ability to process in not a significant amount of time ways of breaking into the most stringent security encryption models we currently have. And that means anyone who's got anything where they're PCI compliance. PCI compliance will eventually mean they'll have to have quantum encryption, because at the minute the RSA and the AES 256 encryption model is the most sort of stringent you can apply. You're going to get to the point where they're going to have to start changing the refresh timers down to days, and then day, and then minutes, to counter the fact that computers will get a break the encryption in days, then day, then minutes. So it's a decreasing, it's an increasing battle and a decreasing benefit to you to just stay where you are. I think the NCSC has already put out some guidance saying that businesses need to start looking at quantum now. There's a whole concept called, which is about people breaking into organizations and stealing data that could be fully encrypted to basically stick in a store. And then when quantum computing is there, they will then break into it, and they will then see whether it was worth stealing in the first place. Now, there'll be a lot of misses there, but they're going to hit the hits as well. So this whole sort of allowing for people to break in and then you go, I was fine, it's all encrypted, isn't really going to swing for a lot longer. And yeah, the guidance from NCSC is start examining quantum now. And that's not just banks and organizations that are heavily compliance and regulated. That's anything. Any organization that is pushing data across your network. Data is the gold or the oil of the 21st century now. It's the lifeblood of organizations. It's where most of the value in an organization now sits. And you can't just mess around with that, because there's a very, very quick route to insolvency and potentially being sued as well. So, I think that quantum computing, for me, specifically quantum encryption, I think quantum encryption is something that is available now. There are a number of vendors doing it. Nokia is one of them. There are a number of vendors doing it now. It's something people really need to be looking at now, because I feel that it's going to be too late to catch up once the actual computers are there, because they're evolving quick, and it only takes one major computer to be set up. Then they'll basically work out how to replicate that, and then it'll be pretty widespread, and then you will not have a lot of time to start hiding and building your defenses. So it's better to put something in place now that stops you from having to react madly to that environment. But also, like I said, the kind of the harvest and then decrypt later model is a well-known nefariously hacker approach. They'll break in, they'll steal some information. If it's open text or something they can break, they'll just shove it onto the dark web as a who wants to buy this info. If there's some juicy files that are encrypted, they'll stick them to the side, and then when they get the opportunity and when the technology is there, they'll break into those and see whether it was worth it or not. But you don't want to be the one that you think you're working off of good data, and then there's people who can read it at the same time as you. So yeah, I think AI is a game changer. But AI, when quantum computing comes in, will be astounding, with all the joys and negatives of that. Yeah. So everything we win, every upside, there's someone looking at it going, "Yep, I can do some real funky damage with that," and they're not constrained by any regulations or training, or they can just try things until it works. they only have to be right once. You have to be right the whole time, and that's the challenge we've always got in security. It's about trying to mitigate your attack vectors and threat surfaces as much as possible. And I think that quantum encryption on connections across your infrastructure is one way you can mitigate some of your threat exposure at the moment.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing so many great insights, and particularly obviously that end bit about quantum, because I get the impression, talking to yourself and one or two others, that a lot of folks haven't really understood, as you say, the models people might use and therefore the threat. But it's been fantastic to chat, and thank you so much for your time, Chris. Thank you.
No problem at all. Nice to meet you.